Truck Talk, brought to you by eTruckBiz.
Hi, everyone. Ben Wheel welcoming you and reminding you that this episode of Truck Talk is not endorsed, sponsored, approved, or otherwise affiliated with FedEx Ground or any company other than eTruckBiz. Joining us today is Kevin Hick, who is a partner with Blackman & Associates that provides business acquisition and investment advisory services for individuals. Blackman & Associates identifies lucrative ownership opportunities, among which are FedEx Ground operations. The firm provides market research, acquisition strategies, business plan development, due diligence assistance, deal searches, equity financing, and more. Plus, today is his birthday, so without further delay, happy birthday and welcome to Truck Talk, Kevin.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I appreciate the well wishes for my birthday.
We've got to celebrate the good things. So let's get right down to it. Well, I'll ask you some questions, and the first one is, what led you to guiding people to owning their own FedEx Ground businesses?
One of my areas of expertise is in small business and small business development, and as a part of that, helping people to secure financing. So I happened to be at University of Memphis speaking, and FedEx Corporation was sponsoring the speaking engagement, and when I was done, they were pleased with my remarks and started talking to me and introduced me to another young man, and they told me about this FedEx Ground opportunity. And as I dug in a bit more and stayed a couple of more days, I found out about it, and I thought it was an excellent business investment opportunity, and so we put it in the menu of things that we show to our clients.
Okay, that's a great way to start. So what is your business background? Kevin, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what your business background is?
Sure. Undergraduate school, I went to the Georgetown University, and my background there was studying marketing and minor in finance, and then subsequently I got my master's in finance. And so as a result, I went from there, worked on Wall Street, and ultimately we started our own firm probably 9 years into my career. And our whole goal was to help families to create financial stability and wealth for their children. That's kind of how we got into business right after traveling around with a orange ball in my hand.
Okay. You were a professional athlete for a little while, is that correct? Well, maybe some stories for a future podcast if you'll join us again.
Absolutely. There'll be some good ones.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the business a little. So do you have a process that you use when working with people? Because I imagine the people listening today are curious about getting into the business or have been in the business and looking to expand their business. So talk a little bit about the process that you use and what someone could expect if they were working with you potentially on an acquisition.
Well, the first thing we do is we try to manage their expectations by telling them what the business is and what the business is not. It's an excellent investment opportunity, but it's not an absentee business. It really is a business that does require attention. The other thing is we encourage families and partnerships because we try to look at the different strengths that individuals have. And we have a checklist, a questionnaire that we take our clients through to determine what kinds of business opportunities are best for them. And because this is very much a people business, if the individuals are not great with people, this may not be the best opportunity because it's very much a people business. You have to have leadership capabilities, and so we look at that. We also look at their financial capacity. Because you're going to have vehicles, you're going to need to have reasonable credit, so we vet them and make sure that they have credit worthiness so they'll be able to secure trucks should they be needed. We also look at the way in which they're going to divide the labor in terms of commitment of time, because some people actually keep their jobs or their businesses and do this, and we try to figure out, well, what does your organizational chart look like? What is the role of each individual in your group, your family, or your partnership? So we go through that. Then we explain to them what the typical day looks like. We explain to them the administrative aspects of the business. We explain to them the need to network and get to know the terminal management. We also explain to them the need to go and learn as many things, as many places about the business model as you can, and including speaking to current operators who may have some experience. Going to events like yours, your companies are helpful, not just because of what you're being taught, but the opportunity to network with other experienced owners. That's been very helpful to us as well prior to making a decision.
That makes sense. In this process, Kevin, how long, you said you have a questionnaire, you take them through learning, you talk about networking, all these different things. What kind of time frame would somebody be looking at in this process? Maybe, from the time they start to the time when you think you would find them a business to own. I'm guessing it's not days or weeks, but months.
No, it's a couple of months. It's actually at least 2 months. It can be shorter if you're talking about an experienced entrepreneur who's already been in business, and some of the very basic things they already know, because you have to remember, many of the people who come into these kinds of businesses, whether it be franchises or contractual businesses like this, understand they're both partnerships. In the case of a franchise, you're partnering with a Fortune 1000 company, and in FedEx contracting, you're partnering with a Fortune 1000, actually a Fortune 50 company. And so getting them familiar with that aspect of it as well. They're first-time entrepreneurs, and they're partnering with an organization that has structure, operational procedures, those kinds of things. So we prep them for that. That takes time. And we want them to speak to not just the super experienced owner that's 10 years. We want to speak to somebody who's been in the business 1 year. We want them to speak to somebody who's been in business 5 years. And that takes time. And so those are some of the things that we do in the process. But no, we don't rush them into it, despite their being anxious and excited as they begin to see that this can be a lucrative opportunity for them and their families. We want them to go in giving them the best chance for success. And as I said before, managing their expectations.
Okay, so about 60 days, average, I guess you say, or about 2 months,
yep.
Maybe that's minimum. Is there a financial cost to this as well, or is that just something that you do? I mean, that's just part of your service? I don't mean specifically, but...
Well, for us, It's a bit different because unlike brokers, we're really advisors and consultants, and so we're generally paid monthly in any case. And during the time that we're preparing them for opportunities, so there's the 60 days we're preparing them for the opportunity, the FedEx opportunity, and keep getting them familiar with the business model. And then, of course, you have the deal search, and that can take as much as 6 months to find the right deal. So we also, as I said, that managing their expectations, you're not going to get a deal tomorrow. They're excited. They've met people. They see people who are doing well. But we try to manage their expectations and find the right deal that fits for them. Because in some cases, as I'm sure you know, Ben, some owners don't own businesses in the town they live in. It could be 2, 3, and in some cases 4 hours away. And so you prepare them for that as well, because everyone, it's similar in franchising. They think they're going to get something around the corner from their house, and that may not be where the best opportunity for you and your team is. And so that's generally how we work the search. That's how we work the prep piece, which is the 60 days you spoke to. And then the search takes what it takes, and we manage their expectations during that time because we vet the opportunities that fit our clients and give them the best chance for success. And because we don't have the incentive to rush and get it sold like a broker might, we have the ability to take our time and find the right opportunity.
So you mentioned setting them up for success. How can you tell? What do you look for to see if someone is going to be successful at the FedEx ground contracting business?
One, a member of their team has to be good with numbers and administrative work, because some of this work, one of the things that's wonderful about this is it is both an on-site and a home-based business. So you'd have to do some hours on-site, but the drivers ultimately leave the terminal and go do deliveries, and you're not sitting at the terminal all day waiting for them. At home, there are aspects of the business that have to be taken care of administratively, whether it's be payroll, whether it be the daily planning of the routes and who's going to go where and who's going to do what, planning that the night before. So someone has to have the capacity to have a person on their team who's got a grasp of administrative duties. You can hire that out, but I don't advise that. You want somebody who has a vested interest and an ownership stake in the business to have those responses. Second, there's got to be someone in your team that's good with people. You're dealing with blue and gray collar guys. They're looking for direction, and more importantly, they're looking to respect the people that they work for. And to get respect from the people who are paying them as well. And so you have to have the ability to manage men and women from a leadership perspective and be engaged with them. Give them a sense that you care about their well-being, you care about their families, because in point of fact, they're entrusting you with their family's well-being when they come to work for you. You want to have someone that has that capacity on your team. The other thing is you want to have someone who has some experience dealing with corporate structures, because though it's not a franchise per se, it does have structure to the relationship between terminal management and FedEx Corporation and you as a contractor. There are rules and regulations that have to be followed. There are performance metrics that have to be met as a condition of your contract. And so you want someone who can interact with management, so to speak, on your team as well. If you have those things in place and the ability to hire a manager who has the boots on the ground kind of experience, which means you want someone who is hiring experience as well on your team, you have a chance to succeed. And many of the people who come into these kinds of businesses, even if they weren't entrepreneurs before, maybe they were management, so that gives them a leg up. And they had to deal with people. They had to deal with reporting. They had to deal with timelines and deadlines and expectations. So those are the traits that we look for and the various members that make up your team, or in this case, some cases, an individual.
I'm going to ask you to clarify something for me because of my ignorance. I've heard the term blue collar, but tell others if they don't know what the term gray collar is. I can imagine, but maybe you have a definition.
It's kind of like the guy who's in between. It's kind of like the guy who's in between. So when we think of white collar, we all know that the guy that's working in the office for the Fortune 1000 company, and that's cool. But when you talk about blue collar, you're thinking about, the first thing that pops up is the construction guy or the plumber. But the in-between professions, what do you call a firefighter? He's not really blue collar, right? What do he's not really white collar. What do you call a farmer? You're in Alabama. What do you call a farmer? You can't kind of call him white collar or blue collar. So those folks fall into the gray collar professions. Even the flight attendant that I'm going to see when I get scooted away somewhere this weekend, same thing. They get put in that class as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for the explanation. That makes sense. And I guess in this instance, it would be the folks I guess we would consider the drivers to be, somewhat the blue collar aspect of this job, and the people who are BCs that are in management but hadn't come from behind the desk. They aren't used to sitting behind the desk. And they maybe were a former driver, but they're now expected to do a lot of planning and the strategy and the management and all that. That would be gray collar. Okay, well, that's a great explanation. I've not heard that before, but I like that. I might use that myself sometime. Talking about this in your experience, you've been doing this for a while. Let me ask you this. How long have you been placing people in FedEx businesses or assisting them with the acquisition? For 3 years.
The firm is in 2 months will be 21 years, and we've been doing the FedEx thing probably now for a little over 3 years, 3.5 years now, and we've done quite a few of them. One of the reasons that we started to do this aggressively is because the business itself is recession resistant, and as I suggested to you, one of the advantages is that we do help people manage their portfolios, but we actually are an investment advisory firm, so that involves whether it's buying commercial real estate, residential rental income, and businesses, which we generally do franchises or something similar to this, a licensing or contractual relationship. In doing that, we saw that you're not really you're mitigating risk, because of the relationship with in this case the Fortune 50 company, and for us, it was really important to find businesses, particularly as we entered into a pandemic recession. I mean, people don't realize this is the first state-driven economic recession we've had in this country's history because we shut down commerce. And we were looking for businesses that were recession-resistant, and trucking was an excellent one. It was already growing at a pace of 15% a year, and particularly in FedEx. And so during this particular time, during this pandemic, it's gone up 35 to 40%. That was good for our clients, and you still have this partnership that I spoke of, so that you knew that this company was going to be around. You knew that the service they provided was enhanced in terms of its value. As a matter of fact, they even gave it a cute name, an essential business. During the pandemic, it was identified as an essential business. And I don't think that's going to go away. So anytime you can get into a business that this country and that corporate America views as essential, it's a good place to be.
You're right. I had not heard that term either before the pandemic of essential businesses. Like you said, I guess that was just something that was coined in the last 24 months or so, or 18 months.
Yep.
So instead of asking you how many people you've placed in a FedEx operation or business, or I say helped acquire, I keep saying place, I mean acquire. Let me put a twist on it, because I asked you earlier about how you could tell if someone or what to look for if they were successful. How many people have you steered away from investing in a FedEx business or acquiring a FedEx business because you just didn't think it would be a good fit for them? I'm curious.
It's a 3-to-1 thing. So for every 3 people, it's one that we steered away. So, for example, if a person is not good working with people, this is probably not the business for them. But that same person, say, for example, if it was an accountant, and this is why we promote partnerships, the accountant guy might not be good with people, but he can do all of the numerical things that are required for this business or for any small business in terms of keeping financial records. Whether you want to outsource that or have that done internally, there's still some things that you have to internally do with your business to give to your accountant. So maybe that guy is good for that. But if he's not good with people and he was coming into us by himself, that's not a good person for this. If it's an individual that had a job that required them to be at a moment's notice drawn away from this business and they did not want to give up their job, we've told those people this is probably not a good thing for them as well. People who are not accustomed to working very, very early hours, this is not a good business for them as well. So we had some people who were nurses, for example, but they were used to working the late shift, and now we're telling them they have to be up at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. This might not be the business for them. So for every 3 people that we've tried to bring into this business, we've turned down 1 for each 3 that we've turned on to the opportunity. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're in a reputation-based business, and we get massive referrals because we guide people into things that make them money, whether it's an investment or an acquisition of a business or whether it's FedEx. If we have one person come into this business and fail miserably, you know the numbers, that one person that's successful tells 10, a person who is unsuccessful tells 100. And so we have to be very careful, both for their personal interests and also for our own. So we don't, unlike a broker situation where just the number, for us it's the relationship. We're not going to guide them if we don't think that their skill sets or their personality traits are compatible with this opportunity.
When people work with you, and you're talking about, do they have to be local to you, or where do you find? Do you work with people all over the country?
All over the place, because we have offices in New York and Nashville and Atlanta and in Los Angeles. So anywhere where they're at, we can work with people. And more importantly, sometimes I feel like my home is my suitcase and there's an address plate on that. When things are really busy, I do quite a bit of travel, and so do some members of my teams. Wherever they are and we think that we can be helpful to them in meeting their family's goals, we try to do that wherever we find them.
Well, I can imagine that. If when I think of a mover and a shaker, I think of Kevin. So
you're far too kind. You're far too kind.
You are always busy. We're fortunate to catch you today. So, what states have you found the most success? Have you noticed a pattern in the few years you've been doing where you're more active?
Yes.
What are some of the more active areas?
The South. The best opportunities are in the South. The difficulty I've found in places like the West Coast are the same challenges that you have with any kind of business there. It's the cost of living. Because your drivers make a good living, but a fairly finite range, you have to pay drivers in California, for example, substantially higher, as much as 20%, 25% higher in California than you would in the South, simply because the cost of living is lower. I can tell you, as a New Yorker originally, we consistently look at Fat Wallet and CNN calculators to look at the cost of living, because this is part of what we do, a lot of demographic research. And Ben, if you and I were making $100,000 in New York, to equate that in the South, it would be $45,000.
Wow.
So, and the predominant reason for that differential is the cost of housing and the cost of medical. That's the difference. And so we found, because the cost of living in the South is considerably lower, you find better deals because the drivers can have a good living. The owners don't have to spend as much money on some of the costs that are associated with this business, like fuel, like insurance. And so, and more importantly, as an operator, owner-operator, you also don't have to pay as much as it relates to wages. And so you find the best opportunities in the southern states. You know, we've had some success in the Midwest. So to let you know, we've done deals in every region of this country in the 3.5 years. We've done deals in every region of this country. And I'm a New Yorker. We've not been able to really bring a deal to close in New York. New Jersey, yes, but not New York, because again, you have that issue of cost of living. And FedEx has the same issue, which is why if you go to a place like a New York, their terminals are way out from the city. And they're driving an hour into town because of the cost of real estate. Wow. And so in that case, the owner has to consider stuff like fuel because he's got to drive an hour to his territory.
I understand where you find the buyers or the investors. How do you come across people who are looking to sell their FedEx Ground business? That's
pretty easy. There's a healthy broker community with FedEx, and so we have relationships with various brokers. Also, because I have a relationship with many of the members of senior management, whenever they have new opportunities that are coming out, they send me a list of opportunities that are either newly crafted FedEx opportunities, and I'll speak to that in a moment, or opportunities where they've taken over operations from former operators. And what we do in those cases is we actually put together bids for those opportunities, and if we win those bids, we subsequently have to staff up and get the trucks and all of the necessary tools that you need to run this business successfully. So either FedEx or the broker community are some of the places that we find deals.
Yeah, well, I know it has become a very active market in the last year, I guess I'd say, with the advent of e-commerce and 7-day business and everything else that's changed in this business. Mm-hmm. Tell our listeners maybe something about maybe the most interesting deal you've worked on with FedEx Ground, or maybe an interesting investor that you've had the pleasure of working with, without naming names, of course.
No problem. I can give you two circumstances, and one is a group of guys who got into this business probably 10 months ago. And these guys are both in the state of Tennessee. They're all two of the partners in Tennessee. The other two partners are in California and in Florida. But they went to college together, and they're in their 50s, and they've stayed friends for 30 years. And off and on, almost every month since they've left school, they've stayed in contact through marriages, jobs, promotions, those kinds of things, and even some stressful life situations. And these guys always wanted to do something in business together. They dabbled in some real estate, but this gave them an opportunity to do something in business. And we brought those guys together. Only one of them had any entrepreneurial experience. He actually ran a dry cleaners in Nashville. We brought these guys together, and in 10 months, they went from the initial 22 routes we helped them secure to now have 52 routes in 10 months. And that was a mix of the opportunities I described a moment ago. They bought an additional set of routes in their home terminal. In that case, they bought 12 more. And another way that you're familiar, Ben, that you can get routes is if you do a stand-up job, FedEx will approach you to take additional routes at no cost. So they approached them. They did a great job. They gave them 10 additional routes. Obviously, they had to get the trucks necessary to service it. So that's what got them to 44. And then we had a bid situation in Huntsville, where your company is based, that came up. And we bid on some routes that FedEx sent us information that was available, brand new routes, and they won that. And so that's how they got to 52. So they actually took advantage of all the ways in which you can get into FedEx. They, one, did the initial acquisition from a former owner. They, two, were granted 10 additional routes because of their stellar performance. And then they purchased another retiring member in that particular terminal. And then last but not least, in a different city, because their routes are all in Tennessee, in a different city, they bid for these opportunities in Huntsville, and they won those as well. 52 routes in 10 months for a group of guys who've known each other for 30 years from college.
Not too shabby. That's a great
all.
story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. So if someone's interested in looking at an acquisition and they're listening to this, but they don't have the 10 friends and they don't have all the money and they might need to be getting financing, what should they know? Because I know you've helped a lot of people with SBA loans and everything.
Yes.
What is something that people would need to know?
First, well in advance of the time, there's a book by Harvey McKay, famous motivational speaker and former business owner. He says, dig your well before you're thirsty. Start beginning to find banks that understand the FedEx business model, because this is not something that the general community knows a lot about. And banks have just in recent years started financing these things. And one of the reasons is because the contracts are annually renewable, and banks are lending you money for 10 years, and in the case of SBA, and 7 years in a conventional loan. And they want to make sure that you're going to be able to make money and pay them back. So it is a daunting task to teach a bank small business lending in general. It is even more when you talk about an exotic concept like FedEx contracting. What I suggest them is start identifying banks that have an understanding of the FedEx business model. That's the first thing. Second, start getting your ducks in a row, so to speak. Start paying down some of your debt so that your credit worthiness is increased. Secondarily, start saving money, because generally, if you're talking about an SBA loan, and most of these will be done with SBA, some conventional, they're looking at you having a capital injection of 20 to 25% of whatever asset you're looking to buy, whatever operation you're looking to buy. So begin saving now, getting your credit worthiness now. And the other thing is, be prepared to put your home up as collateral, because generally they're either looking for secured retirement plans or they're looking for a real estate asset. And if you have an investment property or a summer home, that's even better, because they will take that. But the SBA stipulations require that if there are assets to be taken, that they have to. And the thing to keep in mind is it's not a dollar for dollar thing. These guys that I talked to you about, and some other clients, I have one client, they got a $3 million loan and they had $100,000 worth of equity in their home. They're just looking for you to have skin in the game, so to speak. And the best skin to have in the game is a place where a person lives. So you know they're going to work hard to pay the money back if you're taking their home. Be prepared for that, and prepare your family members, your partners, to the reality that they may have to pledge their home. So that's another thing I would tell them that they need to begin to do. And also read up on the different kinds of loans. Information is pretty basic. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, which is the organization that was founded, 60 years ago to help small business in this country thrive. And the program that we're talking about right now, the SBA 7A loan, is a loan guarantee program where you go to a particular bank and the federal government through the SBA will guarantee that loan, which is why many of them are willing to lend on FedEx deals. And so learn a bit about the SBA loan programs. You can go to their website at sba.gov and learn directly about how the SBA loans work. So that's the other thing I would advise them to do.
Well, that is solid advice. Thank you. I know people will appreciate that. As we start to wrap up, just got a couple more questions for you. Is there anything else we haven't covered that people would need to know that you think would be helpful?
This is extremely important. As you said a few minutes ago, there's a lot of activity going on in this business right now. And part of it is a lot of people lost their jobs as companies began to downsize because commerce was shut down, revenues weren't drawn. A lot of people are now working remotely, and some people are anxious and they're looking for opportunities to invest and own their own business. And this is a great opportunity. You also have to remember that integrity is important. So that's one thing I want to tell them, and that not all brokerages or companies are created equal. And so you'll have people out here who will tell you, oh, it's an absentee business. It is not. Is it a difficult business? No. But it is a demanding business, which means you have to put time on task. And if you have a team, figure out how you're going to divide that out. But it is not an absentee business. So when you see these ads that say manager in place absentee business, manager and police. No one is going to operate your business for you better than you. You can have a manager in place and he will manage the people that work with you / for you, but the total operation of your business is on you. And so don't believe any of that. Understand that you're going to put in minimally 15 hours and not much more than 25 hours, because the nature of this business is drivers leave the terminal and go deliver packages. So that's the first thing. Be wary of that, I would suggest. The other thing is, as I said, this is very similar, Ben, to franchising, in that you're partnering with a major corporation to help them move their product or their service. The difference is, with a traditional franchise, we come together with a seller, we an existing seller, or you can do a startup. But let's say we're buying from an existing seller, we come to terms, you do the contract, you do your due diligence, and you get your bank financing lined up, but you don't get to take over because that franchise, let's hypothetically say Jimmy John, requires that you go through training to learn their business before they certify your deal and let the deal happen. So maybe it's 4 weeks. Kevin and Ben would have to go to Jimmy John's training. After we're certified that we know how to operate that business, then we can conclude our transaction. Well, FedEx doesn't have that. They don't have a training component. And so you're really left at the devices of the person you're buying from. If he's a good seller and he was a good operator, part of your agreement, he'll agree to teach you for 30, 60 days during the transition. But you're really left at the mercy of whether or not he was a good operator or whether he has integrity, and he'll follow up after he's gotten his money. So I highly advise people, and that's why I have such respect for your company, I highly advise people to go to a training of sorts about this business model. eTruck Biz is one of the companies that offers it. I happen to think that they're thorough, and one of the reasons I thought they were thorough is because when I look at the background of the people at the company, they all work for FedEx in varying capacities, and each one worked in the different capacities that you have to be involved in this business. There are others as well, but my recommendation is get some kind of training about this business model, because otherwise you're going to be left at the mercy of whether or not you're buying from a guy who really can teach you or will teach you how to run this business when you buy it from him.
So important. And thank you for the kind words, but I can't agree with you more. Training is lacking, and one of the reasons that we're in business is because the FedEx can't give it to the contractor, so that's what we do, and I appreciate you letting people know about that. So what are Kevin's future plans?
Oh, man, let's see. Making sure my kids can feed themselves so they don't have to call daddy for any money. So that's the first one. The second one, as it pertains to our firm, we actually just want to continue to grow by helping more families and individuals to provide financial security for themselves and their children going forward, particularly as the cost of college and other things that you and I were able to get much cheaper than this generation ever would. And also expanding how we do the FedEx program. One of the things we've tried to do is we've gotten 5 or 6 of our clients who are FedEx contractors to come together as groups to possibly provide benefits, because one of the things that Ben, there's 2 aspects to this business. There's pickup and delivery, which is your step trucks and vans, and then there's line haul, which is your tractors. And right now, across any industry, there's an 81,000 person driver shortage for commercial driver's license, CDL drivers. Finding drivers is a major problem. And that's the same thing, whether it's FedEx or another company. And to be competitive, you're going to have to start offering benefits. Most contractors do not. And one of the ways that we're putting together our clients to be able to do that is we're forming cooperatives. Former legislation about 3 years ago passed that allows for association health plans. So if you're part of a chamber or if you're part of a group, you can get kind of like corporate rates to provide benefits if you have an association or a group. So you form a small FedEx group and you call it FedEx Owners of Nashville. And that group can then go get benefits at reasonable rates and provide it to the drivers for each one of their members, because you're going to have to be competitive. You have drivers in line haul with FedEx that are leaving primarily because you got people like Costco that are paying $87,000 and giving you 401k and giving you benefits, and those benefits are out there to be purchased by these contractors. The cost, depending on where you are, could be prohibitive, but it's not always. But by putting together these groups, you make it affordable, and you get a chance to keep quality drivers or be able to recruit drivers so your business doesn't suffer. So that's kind of what we're working on next.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Well, I know you've got big plans, and I just want to say thank you again for spending some time with us on your birthday. I will let you get back to work and to a celebration this weekend, and thank you to our listeners for joining us today. We appreciate you, and thank you, Kevin, and you and I will be in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Tell everyone I said it. Everyone at eTruck Biz, I said hello, and thank you for what you guys do, and thank you for giving me these moments to chat with you.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure.